And joining me now from Naples is Republican Senator Rick Scott of Florida. He's also a former governor. Senator Scott, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Hi, Chuck. Boy, it's a tough day for Florida. It's been a tough week for Florida.
Sure has. Let me start with this. In the first 72 hours, the people on the ground never feel like the recovery is coming fast enough. So I understand that. But tell me what you're seeing. I know you're in Naples. You've probably taken a look firsthand at Fort Myers. How's the recovery going from your perspective in the first 48 hours?
Yeah, I've toured. I've been in Collier County, Naples. I've been up in Fort Myers, Lee County, and I did an aerial tour of all the areas and talked to first responders. I've been up to Sarasota, Charlotte, where we got a lot of damage. People don't realize that. And actually, I was in Kissimmee yesterday, where there was actually quite a bit of flooding. So here's what's happening. We're still working on rescuing people. This is just horrible. That people have lost their lives. It's horrible that people are still possibly stuck in rubble. But I've been talking to the sheriffs and first responders, and they're trying to get to these people as quickly as they can. They've been working to evacuate people that stayed on places like Sanibel and Pine Island and Fort Myers Beach. There's areas that up in Charlotte County where people were stranded. So they've been trying to rescue everybody, but there's still work to do. So people are working hard. They're trying to get the power back on, make sure your phones work. But the biggest thing right now is just continuing to make sure we find everybody, and anybody that needs help, they get to the hospital, get whatever care they need. We still have a lot of water outages, so there's a lot of work left to do. So it's really, my heart goes out to everybody, though.
You brought up Charlotte County. I'm glad you did. That's a county who's has a population, I think a majority of the population is over the age of 65. They were having trouble just getting bottled water into Charlotte County yesterday. Has that improved?
Everything keeps getting better. One thing that surprised everybody yesterday was the 75 being closed with the flooding on 75, and actually 41 and I think State Highway 70, they all flooded, which impacts your ability to get things in. But I've been talking to the sheriff and doing everything I can to, when I hear of things where there's something, I pass it on to the right person to make sure they get the resources there. I've been talking to FEMA. I know they're absolutely committed to get all the resources here that they can, and at every level. But our sheriffs, our first responders, you really have to thank them for what they're doing. Our utility workers are working hard to get power back on and get people back to a normal life.
Hurricane Ian is the 17th hurricane that has first made landfall in Florida since 1992, and we have a graphic on our map. Some people in Pensacola are going to say, hey, you're missing some hurricanes. These are ones that hit Florida first, not Alabama first, and then impacted Florida. And it's been a total cost over recovery costs of $213 billion in losses. So the question is, as we rebuild, things like mobile manufactured housing, should that even be legal in the state of Florida anymore?
I think what we have to do is take every experience and Chuck, if you go to Charlotte County in particular, when I did the flyover there's a lot of mobile home parks they got unbelievable amounts of damage. So you're right. We have to go back and say every time, okay, so how do we make sure that the biggest thing is we don't lose a life. That's number one. What do we have to do? What laws do we have to change? What building codes do we have to do? We did it after Andrew. We did it while I was governor. We've got to look at every time, what do you do to make sure this doesn't happen again? You don't ever want these things to happen again. So I think every county is going to have to look at that and say, does that make sense for their county? I know I'm in Collier County. I'm not sure that we do any new manufactured housing here, but every county is going to have to look at that. At the same time, people that they want to live in Florida, they want to live in the Sunshine State, and the more expensive housing you have, it makes it difficult for people to live there. So I guess it's a balance.
Well, I guess I hear you, but at what point is affordability? I get that you have to you want to err on the side of affordability. At the same time, you want to get to safety. And the fact of the matter is, these mobile manufactured homes, I understand it's a county by county decision here, but should the state step in? I mean, there's a reason why you can't get property insurance right now in many places in Florida, and this might be one of the reasons.
Yeah. I think the state has to look at all these things. I think that I mean, look, Chuck, as you know, I grew up in a poor family, so I always think about the cost of things because,
right.
you know, you impact the poorest families every time you raise the cost of something. But you also want to keep people safe. So we also have to always look at how do you make sure people evacuate, get out of harm's way as quickly as possible. I know it was a big issue that I focused on when I was governor. It's all sort of all the above, Chuck. You do have to look at what housing should we allow to make sure people are always going to be safe.
What's the best way to get insurance companies to do business in the state of Florida? Is it stricter building codes?
I think it's sort of, you have to have stricter building codes. You have to make sure that you know, you learn from every storm. But then on top of that, you got to make sure there's no fraud. We've got to really crack down on fraud. When I was governor, we worked hard to every year you had to work on making sure that there wasn't fraud in the insurance market, because who pays for that? The consumers do, and the poorest families end up paying for it the most because somebody takes advantage of the system. So what you've got to do is every year, what we had to do is we had to look at what's going on in the insurance market, where there's fraud, and how do we eliminate it. And that's something the state's going to have to do very aggressively because, as you know, property insurance has gotten too expensive, and we're losing insurance companies that want to write here, or insurance companies that are going out of business because they can't afford to write here.
You and Senator Rubio have already sent a letter requesting additional funds and resources for the state of Florida. This is probably not going to be a controversial vote, but when Governor DeSantis was Congressman DeSantis, he voted against a similar bill to help out the victims in the states of Superstorm Sandy. And at the time, he said, "I sympathize with the victims of Hurricane Sandy and believe that those who purchase flood insurance should have their claims paid. At the same time, allowing the program to increase its debt by another $9.7 billion with no plan to offset the spending with cuts elsewhere is not fiscally responsible." There are going to be some other members of Congress who don't want to support this supplemental. What's your message to them, and who may have the same mindset that then Congressman DeSantis had?
Well, I think what you have to do is you have to spend the money wisely, but you do need, I mean, the federal government is a partner in this, and I learned that as governor. The federal government is a major partner in helping families, helping businesses, helping governments get back to normal, but you don't want to waste money. As an example, I put a lot of effort into cracking down on the significant fraud in the debris pickup market. And what happens after a hurricane. And I've been actually trying to get a bill passed since I've been up there. I've been up there almost 4 years to fix that because there's abuse in this. But we do have to provide disaster aid, and whether that's for a hurricane or whether that's for flooding or whether that's for wildfires, we've got to do that. And you know, I hope people will continue to support and I think we ought to be doing. We got to come up with a way to do this where it's a longer term strategy.
We're 37 days away from Election Day. You've got another part of your job is Senate Republicans, trying to get them to win the Senate. Do you believe the Republicans are on track to get control of the Senate?
Well, most of my effort right now is on the hurricane relief for this hurricane, but absolutely, I think we're at 52 seats plus. If you look at Biden's numbers are really bad. People have rejected the Biden agenda. We have great candidates. The Democrats have to defend what Biden's done. So I think it's going to be a good November for Republicans. But we got to keep working hard every day.
Was it a mistake for Lindsey Graham to offer up that abortion ban at 15 weeks? Did that complicate your efforts to win the Senate?
Chuck, Democrats have talked a lot about that this year. So every candidate's been talking about what their position is on abortion. So I think it's important that people tell people what their position is, and it's being done state by state all across the country.
So you don't think it should be done at the federal level?
Well, I mean, look, you can. There's arguments to do it at the federal level. Right now, all the candidates are taking positions. They've been taking positions since the Dobbs decision when the first leak came out. So I don't know what Lindsey put out changed the conversation, but it is an important issue for the country. I'm pro-life, as you know. Right. I think we ought to have reasonable restrictions. I think a lot of people are comfortable with 15 weeks and exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. But every candidate gets to make their choice.
Senator Rick Scott, Republican senator from Florida, also the former governor from Naples this morning. Everybody, I think, is a Floridian this morning, and we're all hoping for the best as recovery efforts continue. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, pray for all the families, Chuck.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.